Dear Brother, with Alex and Mark, is brought to you by absolutely no one.
Okay.
All right, seems to be recording.
Seems to be recording. Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Dear Brother podcast. Today, Alex and I are trying a new method of recording. So if you're listening to this, it might sound different. I hope it doesn't, but it might. And if you're interested, this is our first attempt at recording video. So that means that this episode will go to YouTube as well, and you can find us on YouTube at Dear Brother Podcast. So if you're a creep and you'd like to see what we look like and what rooms we're in and the stuff that's behind us, then you can go to the YouTube and search for Dear Brother Podcast and check us out. That being said, if for whatever reason this doesn't work out, it won't be on YouTube and it'll just be audio.
Fair enough. How will they know?
How will they know? They will listen and they will think, oh, I'm a creep and I want to watch them. And then they'll go to YouTube and then they won't find it.
And then they'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
Almost want to purposely do that.
No, that's not nice. We'll see how it goes. We're trying some new ways to do this. So everybody's clear on what we do here is we try to do this as cheaply as possible. Like we don't try to spend any money on anything.
No.
Like other than microphones and hosting fees, like we actively don't want to get the right software. So we're trying to use software that comes on our computers.
Seems reasonable. Seems to be working so far. I mean, the audio's been great.
Yeah, so far. And so that's the thing that worries me a little bit about all this is that we've been doing it in a way that allows us to have an uncompressed audio file.
Right.
But this won't. This will be a compressed audio file.
So how did the episode with your brother sound? Because I only watched it or listened to it via YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. So there is another
And that sounded
podcast.
just fine.
There's another podcast that I'm doing with my brother that does not exist yet. It's still in the works. So, but Alex has seen a preview. The way we did that is we used Skype.
Okay.
And we recorded the video via Skype. Skype is capable of recording our video.
Right.
But it's choppy at best. Like I'm constantly freezing in
You
the
were
video
freezing
frame.
up. Your brother was fine.
Yeah, because he's got a proper internet connection and I have a mountain connection.
Stupid mountains.
But then we recorded simultaneously locally on our computers the same way that you and I do. And then I merged the audio with the video file. So that's why the audio sounded good.
Gotcha.
So we may end up doing the same thing, but I think this method, I don't know, it could work. We'll see how it goes.
All right. I'm going to have to reconfigure my microphone setup.
Why?
It's not blocking my face.
I mean, it's okay if it blocks your face a little bit. Like,
Bob and weave.
bob and weave.
Bob and weave.
Yeah, so there is a good chance that for anybody listening, our audio quality might not be as good as it had been previously, but we're going to find out. And if it's not acceptable, then either this will never air and nobody will ever hear it, or we'll resume normal operations on the following episode.
I accept.
All right. Hey, tell us about Adult Little League. How did it go?
So, we lost.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it was best of 3.
Where did we leave off? Did we play game 1 when we recorded, or and we lost?
So it was best of 3, and you were 1-1.
No, we were 0-1.
0-1. Okay.
And then we played the second game, and we got utterly crushed. I think we lost like 16-4. The game was over by like the 4th inning.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
do you have a mercy rule in Adult Little League?
We usually do, but in the playoffs, the mercy rule is off. So there's usually, I think it's 10 runs after 5 and 12 after 6, or vice versa.
So the mercy rule...
That game would have been over in the 5th inning had this been during the regular season.
Okay.
But because it was the playoffs, there is no mercy rule. So... theoretically, they could have beat us 35-2, and we would have had to play the whole fucking game.
Okay.
It was a vastly different game than game 1. Like, we were very competitive in game 1. Game 2, we were just shit.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, there's a whole thing behind it, and whatever.
Is the whole thing behind it not sufficient content for our podcast?
I mean, it could be, but who really cares?
Who cares about any of this?
Okay, well, all right. So the kid who pitched for us in game 2 is this kid who doesn't really. I mean, he plays for us, but he was almost like a hired hand. He only played select games, and he's a pitcher. And he was like this kid. I played with him like 10 years ago, and he was good enough that he played an independent ball. Like he played for the Newark Bears when they had a team.
Okay.
But that was 10 years ago, and now it's 10 years later, and he still thinks he's hot shit. And he's really not that good. Like, he throws hard, but that's about it. But he's in his head, he's a legend in his own mind, right? So he comes down to the games, and he throughout the season, like, there's a certain amount of innings you need to pitch in order to qualify for the playoffs. So my coach typically pitches him just enough to qualify him so that he doesn't show up to every game. Meanwhile, the rest of us, like, we play the entire season. Like, we're all... So, like, game one, the kid who pitched was a guy who was there all year, and, like, there's a certain sense of, there's a camaraderie. There's a team, we played all year. You're in the trenches for all year. He's part of the team. So, like, if he struggled, like, like, everyone got, you know what I mean? Like, we just got behind each other, and it was a real team effort.
Hold on a second. So, you're telling me that your team tried to bring in ringers for the last game?
Yeah. So, look. We're fucking grown men playing Little League, right? We're not professionals. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna make errors. We're gonna fuck things up, right? That's what cost us game one. We were winning. Sure. There were 3 errors in an inning, and we lost. At no point in that game did it would have been very easy for the kid who was pitching in game one to be like, turn around to his infielders and be like, dude, what the fuck? You should have caught that. You suck, blah, blah. But he didn't, because he's an adult, and he understands that, like, the guy playing second base is a cop. He's not a baseball player. And the guy playing shortstop is, an electrician. He's not a baseball player. So, like, he gets it. This jerk off who pitched for us, like, nothing was his fault. So he gave up hits, right? He gave up, like, legitimate base hits to the outfield. He thought that we should have caught the ball. Like, the ball would drop in front of the left fielder, and he put his hands up like this. And it's like, what are you putting your hands up for, dude? That was a solid base hit. It's not like we dropped a fly ball. Like, that was a legitimate base hit. Could he have dove for it? Maybe. But, like, it wasn't like a play that he would be like, oh, you should have caught that.
So isn't it the job of the pitcher, at least as best as they can, to prevent the other team from hitting the ball?
Well, that's the other thing, right? If this kid is so good and such a hot shot, like, why are they hitting the ball off you, jerk off?
Right.
And on top of that, he was walking people left and right, so he has no one to blame for that but himself. So by, like, the third inning, we were down. I think it was like 8-0, and this kid was just shitting on all of, like, the entire team. Like, oh, you should have caught that. These guys, And the funny part was that his mom. Now, mind you, this kid has got to be in his mid-30s at this point. Mm-hmm. His mom came to the game. Mm-hmm. And his mom sat in the dugout.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So this man-child is sitting there with his mom, and his mom is talking shit. To the point, like, she's, like, telling him, oh, well, you can't expect to win if your teammates aren't going to catch the ball for you.
Oh, wow.
So I left the dugout. Like, I spent the entire game, like,
so hold on. Hold on. This is an exceptional segue into our proposed topic for the show. So just so I'm clear here. So your team, someone on your team decided to get a ringer in for the final game, who is a 30-something-year-old ball player, at least in some quasi-professional manner previously in life. And he shows up, throws the game, and all the while he's complaining and berating the team members of the actual team. His mother is sitting in the dugout and doing the same.
Yeah. So like, again, if my mom came to me and just out of the blue said, hey, I'd like to come watch you play baseball. I'm not going to tell her no, right? It's weird. I'm a middle-aged man, my mom coming to watch me. But whatever. I'd be like, yeah, okay, you want to come down, come down.
Yeah.
I'd bring a chair for her. I'd find a nice shady spot away from the team, and I'd say, here, sit here and enjoy the ball game. It would never cross my mind to have my mother, my brother, any one of my family members, maybe my kid, could sit in the dugout.
Sure.
And I let him or her put on a helmet, be the bat boy or something.
Yeah.
That'd be okay with. But Like, no.
I didn't even know that was allowed, actually, to be honest.
It wasn't really allowed. Like, she just showed up and, like, she sashayed herself in and kind of made herself at home. And, no one...
Nobody
like,
wanted to say anything.
Right, because who's, she's an older lady. Like, what are you going to do? Hey, lady, get the hell out of here. It's like,
Oh, how bizarre.
So we ended up losing. Jerk-off face was pulled by, like, the 5th inning, I think.
Uh-huh.
And, and then the rest of the guys who came in, they pitched, and the morale went up once the kid came out of the game, I think. But at that point, we were already, like, it's beyond the point of no return.
Well, I mean, so I in general have a problem with the concept of, I'm trying to think of the way to put this, of parents treating their children as their golden statues regardless of their behavior.
It's clear that this kid, just by his behavior and then seeing how his mother still treats him to this day as a mid-30s-year-old man, this kid was never told no. Right?
Allowed to do whatever he wanted.
He was allowed to do whatever he wanted, and I don't know his history. I don't know.
Sure.
It seems like his mom, like she's a single mom. Maybe there was no dad present. I don't fucking know, and I don't care to know. This kid's a jerk off. If he falls off the face of the earth tomorrow, I wouldn't shed a tear.
Okay.
But like, yeah, he just seemed like the type of kid who just, never got told no. Everything he did was great. Everything that happened bad was somebody else's fault. No
Right.
accountability for him.
It's okay.
So that's the way he was brought up. So that's we're losing the game. Well, it's not my fault we're losing. It's because you guys can't catch.
It couldn't possibly
No.
be my fault.
Right.
I'm delightful in every
I'm
way.
the best. I am the best person here. I'm the best player. Well, if you guys didn't play semi-professional baseball, I did.
That's actively a problem for humanity.
It's actively a problem for this team, and it's a conversation that will be brought up when we have our year-end shindig next
Well,
week.
yeah, because I think quite a while ago we did a show where I interviewed you and I asked you a bunch of questions about baseball, and you even said, I think, something to the effect of like, the only thing you don't like about this is shit like what you just described.
Yeah. I think we would have had a better chance at winning the game. Look, odds are we probably would have lost, right? They were a much better team. I'm not ashamed to say it.
That's fine. That's
But
like
the
fine.
fact that we were competitive with them in game 1 and we could have won the game,
Right.
led me to believe that we could have won game 2. We could have won game 3 if we played it.
Sure.
But I think we would have had a better chance if we had thrown anyone else on the team who had been there all year. And even if that person got shelled and we lost 25-2, it would have been a better, I don't know, better feeling. Like, I left that game pissed off, not because we lost, but because we lost with that asshole on the mound. Not because...
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's also the attitude, right? Like,
Yeah.
everybody, you're saying, like, under normal circumstances, the pitcher and the catcher and the outfield, they know each other. They've played together.
Right.
They all understand what the deal is. If somebody makes an error, it's like, bummer, let's keep going. But the attitude of this guy during the game just ruined it for everybody else. So not only did you lose, but you didn't even have a good game. It wasn't enjoyable, it sounds like.
That's exactly it. It wasn't... Everyone, like, the second baseman made... I don't even say it was an error, right? There was a ball. There was a man on first. A ball was hit to the shortstop. Shortstop threw him the ball to try to do a force play at second, and it bounced off his glove. He missed it. He went to the outfield, so everybody was safe. Pitcher threw a fit. Next inning, my coach decides to swap the second baseman with the outfielder. Put the second baseman in the outfield, bring the outfielder to play second base. So the man who was playing second base was fucking pissed. Like, he was like, what the fuck? He's like, I've been here all year. I make one mistake and this asshole throws a fit, and now I gotta, like, so he was like, so the entire game, I'm playing center field, and every time you go out, I have to go over to my right fielder and, like, talk to him, like, hey, man, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Just play the best you can. Blah, 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 blah. But it's like that guy was, like, you ruined his Sunday. You ruined his season because it was like, why?
So the topic of today's show is respect.
Yes.
Alex and I struggle with coming up with topics. And every once in a while, I will throw one out there. And neither of us are researching or like that worldly that we're able to pick up any topic and just talk about whatever. But respect is one of those pretty basic things that a lot of people basically understand what it means and how to do it or not. And just by the nature of your story, it's clear that not only did this individual who was pitching, but also his mother and likely his brother and or his aunt and uncle and anybody else in that family, roughly speaking, generally don't understand respect.
No, definitely not.
Right? Because like
if they understood respect, she would not have been sitting in the dugout.
In the dugout.
One.
If they understood
and if she
respect,
was, she would have kept her fucking mouth shut.
Right. Or for that matter, he wouldn't have berated people for making errors because even if it was their fault, even if that play could have gone better because the other guy, made a mistake or not, like general respect for another human being is not to just randomly berate them.
No.
It's to support them or to say, hey man, next time if you do it like this,
right.
Maybe better, but cool. Let's keep playing. Whatever.
Right. Look, there's two scenarios, right? If someone is intentionally fucking up, then yeah, you can berate them, right?
Well, that in and of itself is a lack of respect.
Right. But like, if you're like, again, we're not professionals. We're grown men who have 9-to-5 jobs, 5 days a week, and we play baseball once a week because we like to play baseball.
Right.
We want to continue playing Little League.
Well, it's like you said, like, the guy playing first is a cop, the guy playing, shortstop's an electrician or whatever. It's like, yeah, you could have dove for that ball, but then would you be able to go to work on Monday?
Well, that's the other thing, right? It's like, yeah, you gotta, especially now that we're getting older, like when we were younger, we were, at least I was a lot more reckless and throwing myself. Like this year, I threw myself early in the season and I played with bruised ribs for about 6 weeks and it hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt a lot. So when a ball was hit and as I'm running for it in my head, I was like, well, I could die for this, but I could get hurt. Yeah. Maybe I won't this time.
Yeah, I could die for this or I have a copay.
Right, exactly, yeah. It's like, I got to think about these things now.
That's incredible. So does this kid have a job or does he make money from playing baseball?
Apparently he's a DJ of some sorts.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, he parties in the Hamptons and he's a DJ.
Oh, everything about this individual is just
he's
terrible
he's a piece of work, yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I'm hoping he's not back next year.
Well, I mean, I don't know how this whole thing works, right? But like, you've been playing on this team for long enough and everybody else has been playing on this team long enough. Like, who the fuck's in charge and who makes that decision?
So the manager's in charge, right?
Right. So can't you all tell the manager, like, hey man, you're also a real person. Well, don't be an asshole.
It's never been an issue because this kid, again, he played very far and few between. He played just enough to qualify for certain things, and we never made it far enough in the playoffs for him to be a factor, I guess. Right?
So he had played for the team previously.
Yeah, he's been on the team for a few years.
Okay, and he'd come on and off or whatever.
But in the few years that he's played for us, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've played with him because he typically comes for weeknight games. He can't be bothered to wake up early on a Sunday morning because he's out partying on Saturday nights. So he's not there. Weeknight games I typically don't make because I'm 42 years old and the days of me playing until 11:30 at night, coming home and waking up 4 hours later and being effective the next day are over. So I've made the conscious decision to say, hey, weeknight games, I'm out. Unless it's a Friday night and so I can sleep in late. I have a job.
Yeah.
I have
so I understand. So previously, I had thought that this was more of like everybody plays every game except if they miss one because of whatever reason. But you're saying there's more games going on than any one person is always playing.
Correct. I mean, we typically play a 17 to 20 game season, and they're usually Sunday mornings, but there will be weeknight games thrown in there.
Okay. So what is respect? Can we define respect? Can you define respect?
No, can you? I was thinking of that this week when you brought up the topic. I was like, he's gonna ask me for a definition of respect. And in my head, I'm like, well, respect is just respect. And then I thought of you yelling at me, going, you can't define a word with a word. I go, damn, he's right.
I mean, that's true. It's like number one rule of definitions. So one
The easy definition for respect in one aspect is there's several different. I think there's different nuances to respect, right?
Yeah.
I think the easiest one is to acknowledge someone's, I guess, opinion or feeling, right, and accept it. May not necessarily agree with it, but just to accept that someone has an opinion or a feeling on something.
Okay.
Sort of like, I don't know, if you want to go into politics, whether you're pro-choice or whatever. You may not agree with it, but you respect someone's opinion on it because that's their opinion,
Okay.
right? But then there's the other respect, like respecting your elders or respecting, I don't know. How do you define that?
Well, you're right. There's at least two basic facets to respect. And when I think of respect, I think of treating other people in a way, at least in a way that you would like to be treated, right?
Okay.
So let's use this guy as an example. I would suspect that if anybody treated him the way he treated the others, he would flip right the fuck out.
Oh, no doubt.
Because it's, disrespectful to behave that way toward other people. And so there's this kind of fundamental, like, to be reasonably accepting, kind of like you say, reasonably accepting of other people and their belongings and their behaviors and of their ideas, such that you are civil around them and you are respectful of them. I can't define a word with the word. The other kind of respect is a little bit more specific, and it has something more to do with maybe somebody's capabilities. Like, I have a great deal of respect for people who are specialized in particular fields, whether it be like art or science or something like that. These people are like super smart and well practiced and educated, and they can produce music, or they can, come up with some scientific discovery. And so through somebody's behaviors or capabilities that are somewhat extraordinary compared to my own or somebody else's, I have a great deal of respect for them for that. Right. So but there's two kinds. It's like you wouldn't go to somebody's house and like ask to use the bathroom and then like piss on the floor and then leave it.
No.
Right? Because you have a certain amount of respect for them as human beings that you would make sure, oh, fuck, I missed. Let me clean that up.
Right.
Right? Because otherwise, who's going to clean it up? Right?
The person who lives there.
The person who lives there. And they're going to go in and they're going to go, I can't believe Alex pissed on the floor and didn't clean it up. That was weird. How disrespectful of him.
Right.
Right? And so I think, it's probably helpful to look up the actual definition of respect from the internet.
Sweet internet.
Sweet internet.
Remember the days when you have to go to like a book?
I do.
Look up the definition of things?
I do. I still have my dictionary that I haven't used because Google has it. Okay, so here we go. So there's two definitions according to Google. And as a noun, a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. Okay, so that's kind of what I described about the scientist or whatever. And then number two is due regard for the feelings, wishes, rights, or traditions of others.
There you go.
We have both successfully defined respect.
See that? Who needs a dictionary? Come to us for your definitions.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dear Brother. And so, like, I wonder, like, obviously it starts somewhere, right? For that guy to come into your game, to your team, and be so actively disrespectful to the people who are playing on the team, the game itself, the day, the style, like all of this stuff, right? Like, he didn't just come out of the box that day and decide to be disrespectful. That's got to lead up to, like, years of behavior has to lead up to something like that, right?
Well, it's someone not teaching him what respect is or to be respectful. Or clearly his mother is, just by her behavior, the fact that she's sitting there shit-talking people, shows you where he learned it from. So it's...
Okay, so you have kids.
Yeah.
Right? How do you teach your children respect?
I typically yell at them.
Fair
No,
enough.
actually, I'll give you a good example.
Yes.
Last night we went to a baseball game. We went to a Ducks game. It was me, my daughter, and her friend. So, second inning came around, and she's getting older now. She's going to be 11. So I told them both before the game, I said, hey, I'm going to give you guys a little freedom tonight.
Oh,
If you guys want to walk around the stadium by yourselves, go for it. It's not a big stadium. It's a minor, it's not like Yankee Stadium. It's a little park.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
only one level. I said, you take your phone. You have it on you. If anything happens, you call me. Just don't leave the stadium. Just go. And I told her, I said, don't be an idiot. Behave yourself, blah, blah, blah. So I gave them money. I said, if you guys get hungry, there's food. Buy food. So they go off. They come back a half inning later. No food. But they both have brand new Ducks lightsabers. Plastic light up lightsaber toys.
sure.
So I was like, well, what happened to food? And like, well, we went to the store. I was like, all right, whatever. You're kids.
Yeah.
So they start playing with these things at our seats.
I just like the fact that when given the choice between food and toys,
Oh, they
your
went
children
to toys.
actively chose toys and not food.
Yeah. And I told Barbara about it, and she's like, you expected, like, you gave them money on their own? I was like, yeah, it's like, I got to give them a little bit. I got to give her some trust. I have to show
Sure.
her. She's got to
Right.
get some sort of independence. I can't keep the leash on forever. She needs a little.
Did you think she was going to come back with steamed broccoli and a book?
Yeah, I was hoping she'd come back with a hot dog, but whatever. It's okay.
Sure.
So they come back with these lightsabers, and they're at the seats, and they're playing with them. And I look over them and say, guys, take it easy, number one. Number two, I said, there's people around us. They're trying to enjoy the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, keep them down and don't hit anybody. I said, if you hit anybody with the lightsabers, I'm going to take the lightsaber, I'm going to give it to the person you hit, and I'm going to allow them to hit you back.
That's fantastic.
So they kind of got it at first. And look, they're kids again. So, as
Sure.
the game went on, they kept playing with them. And at one point, like, my daughter had it up in the air and she's waving it back and forth. And I said, Olivia, stop, put it down. There's people behind you. They're trying to watch the game. You have to, like, be respectful of them trying to watch a game without a lightsaber being flashed in front of her face. And she got it. And then she forgot it 20 minutes later, and she started again. So I just took it away. And I put it next to me, and I said, look, now you lost it. She's like, what's going on? I was like, you can't do that. I said, sweetheart, there's people literally right behind us who are trying to watch the game, and you're disrupting them. Be respectful.
Party's over, kid.
Party's over. Now the lightsaber's mine until the end of the game. Hopefully she learned the lesson. And if she didn't, something like this will happen again, and I'll teach her again that, hey, do this or this.
Right.
And I'm hoping that after repetitive things, it'll click in her head, hey, there's people behind me. I shouldn't do this. And that's how you learn. I could have been a dick and just be like, yeah, go swing your lightsaber, go nuts.
Well, I mean, everybody has seen those situations, right?
Yeah,
Where you've
and
been
look,
at a whatever, and the kid is doing a thing, and the parent just sits there and lets the kid do the thing, and you're like, what the fuck?
I had it at the game yesterday. There was a row of people, 2 rows in front of us, and the one kid was standing up talking to her mom for like, I don't know, half hour. And I'm sitting there and like, she's literally like right in front of me. So I'm have to do this to watch the game. And at no point does the mother say, oh, sweetie, sit down. There's people trying, like, you know what I mean? It's like complete disregard for their surroundings or anyone around them.
So one of the things that I've said for many, many years, and this is sort of outside of topic, is just people's general lack of self-awareness. And I think that, at least in part anyway, and I can't say this for the whole world or for the whole country, but it seems like Americans are really good at not being self-aware. Like, we think we are so awesome that anything that we do is great. And so, why would we ever consider our own behavior and how it impacts others? Like, we've proven that over and over again, that we're just kind of a bunch of selfish pricks in that regard. And like, I kind of want to see a scenario. Like, I wish there were a scenario where there were 2 children sitting at a ball game or whatever, quietly. And in front of them were 2 other children being assholes.
Right.
Flinging fucking hot dogs and lightsabers or whatever. And those 2 quiet children were being disturbed by this. Because that's never what happens, right? It's always adults who are like, wait a minute, this is not great.
Right.
But has there? I want to see that situation where there's two kids who are well behaved and are looking like, and they look forward and they say, "Excuse me, would you please stop hitting me with your lightsaber? That's really bothering me, and I'm unable to enjoy the game." And the other kid with the lightsaber goes, "Nah, screw you. This doesn't happen."
No, and I think generally kids aren't. Not that they're not well behaved, but they're kids. Like I learned that yesterday.
Yeah.
Like my daughter and her friend, literally for 5, they did not shut the fuck up for 5 hours. Like we got there early, and there was fireworks after the game, so we were there for 5 hours, and they just did not. Like at one point, and I love my kid dearly, but I wanted to look over. I generally just wanted to look over and, could you just shut the fuck up?
Could you
just shut the fuck
You
up?
sure
for like
are talking
20
a lot,
minutes?
kid.
They wouldn't even through the fireworks. There's this beautiful giant firework display at
Yeah.
the end of the game, and I'm watching it, and I'm looking over, and they're chatting it up. I'm like, dude, there's like fucking explosions happening in front of us. It's the coolest fucking thing in the world,
Fire in the sky.
and you guys are just and in the car. I'm like, oh my god.
Still, like, look, that's
But they're
generally,
kids.
yeah, that's
Right.
acceptable.
That's-
Like you don't want to
right.
hear this nonstop drivel that's coming out of their faces,
Right.
but like it's perfectly reasonable for them to do that. In fact,
That's
actually,
exactly it, like-
it's actually rather good that they were doing that versus just sitting there like lumps doing nothing or sitting
Right.
on.
I was
phone
annoyed
or
because
iPad.
I am a lump. Like I like to sit there like a lump and just watch the game.
Right. Yeah.
But
You
they're-
you were annoyed because you're an old man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny because halfway through the game, I'm looking around the stadium. I was like, man, I'd like to find, you know how there's usually like one awkward seat at a stadium that's only one seat because like that's where it only fit.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'd like to find that seat and like buy that ticket for the next 20 years and just sit there, just
sit
silence, and watch
By
the game.
myself. I'll bring the family, but they'll sit elsewhere.
Yes, exactly. You guys sit over there. I'll sit here in silence and stew.
So like, look, little things like that, right? Individually, none of them are a big deal. The
Right.
lightsaber slinging in the air, the whatever, the yammering on for hours and hours on end. But like generally and like cumulatively, if you never stopped your daughter from flinging her lightsaber up in the air, in her mind, it would be perfectly all right.
It's okay, right?
Right. And then the next time, if you didn't, it would be perfectly all right. And then, like, one day she'd be 30 and she'd be flinging her lightsaber in the air and somebody's going to punch her in the throat.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, what I can't quite understand, I mean, I think I understand it, but I really don't, is how the pitcher got to 30 something years old with his mom sitting in the dugout, cheering him on and berating his teammates because he could do no wrong. How does that get so far? How did this guy get not punched? How did he not get punched in the face yet?
I don't know, man. That's a great question.
Like, do we just not punch people in the face anymore? I guess
No, you don't.
like
Those
we
days are
used to.
gone. We used to.
Yeah.
But you don't do that anymore.
Maybe
It
we
doesn't
should.
happen.
Maybe we should reinstitute face punching.
No, you know why? Because
Why?
I feel like parents or a lot of people nowadays.
Oh, just to be clear, I'm not talking about punching a parent punching a child in the face. I'm talking
No,
about an
no,
adult
no.
punching another adult.
What I'm saying is like, objectively, if my kid was a jerk, right? And she or he got punched in the face because they were being a jerk, and it was proven that they were being a jerk.
Right.
Like I wouldn't be happy that they got punched in the face,
Sure.
but I wouldn't be upset, right? At the
You would
person who did
understand.
the punching, I would understand it, right? And I would, but nowadays, like, there's that mentality that no one's kid can do any wrong,
So
and I see it a lot with parents everywhere. Like, no one wants to admit that their kid fucked up. It's okay. Kids are gonna fuck up. They're
Right.
kids. Like, they don't know any better. The only way you're gonna learn is by fucking up. I fucked up. You fucked
right.
up.
Oh, I fucked up a ton.
Right.
Half my job was fucking up.
But that's how you learn.
Right.
You learn by fucking up, and hopefully, if you're have a fucking brain in your head after you fucked up, you go, "Oh man, screwed
Well,
up. I'm not going
it's
to do that
also-
again, or I'm going to change this.
Well, but it's important to have people around you to remind you that you fucked up at
Right.
that point.
Because
Right?
if no one's going to teach you that you screwed up, then you're just going to think that behavior is okay. You're just going to continue to wave that lightsaber like, hey, free world, woohoo.
Right.
But it seems that nowadays,
Nowadays,
Um,
these damn kids today.
yeah, that parents seem to not want to admit that their kids are capable of screwing up.
Here's
So there's
a
always
real
an excuse for the behavior.
here's a real question that I don't understand, and why is it that, okay, so on the one hand, generally speaking, parents think their children are like golden gifts from God that can do no wrong, right? And on the other hand, we're perfectly fine letting them get shut up in schools. Is that line to be drawn? Because here, like, as a society, we have decided that children are so precious. So in the last episode, I'm just like, yeah, if you're kids, whatever, big deal. Like, we don't really care. But
Right.
yet here we are talking about how precious we think they are. Save the children, for the children. The children are the future, right? But then we actively ruin them. And we don't seem to have a problem when they get shot in schools. Like, I know you and I do have a problem with it, right? I don't even have kids and I have a problem with it. But apparently not enough of us have a problem with it.
I think most people have a problem with it. They just don't want their guns taken away.
They just but see, like, here's the thing, man. When it comes to shit like that argument, fuck that argument, because
It's not a good argument. But
but it illustrates how little they care, right? Because if you're the kind of parent or human who says, oh yeah, I totally care about kids and them not getting shot. I would much rather kids not getting shot, but if that means me giving up my gun, then I really don't care that much. So I actually don't care. It's that, to me, is a binary choice. There's no gray area there.
right.
Like, if kids are getting shot in schools, then you should be willing, if you truly care about kids, you should be willing to reduce guns. So,
I
if you're,
agree with
hey,
you.
dear listener, if you're one of those people who say things like children are the future and they're gifts from God, but are actively like promoting more guns, then fuck straight off. Stop listening.
No, we need our listeners.
We don't need that one listener.
That's like 10% of our listeners.
I know. No, stay and listen. Listen to a dissenting view. Actually, that's rather healthy.
Please listen more.
Yeah. Tell your other gun-toting friends to listen to Mark. Tell him to fuck off.
Yeah, I wonder how much of a factor is that more parents or more households you have two working parents nowadays, right?
Right.
So there's less time. There's less time with a parental unit spent with the kids, if that makes any sense. And I'll use myself as an example. Like, my wife and I both work,
Right.
and we work 9 to 5 jobs. Sometimes it's a little longer, sometimes a little shorter, whatever. We make things work. But I know that, like, at the end of the day, when we get home, like, we're both exhausted, right? We're both shot. And those last 3 hours with the kids they're not as spent as much quality time as I would like, because, and this could be, I mean, it's an excuse, but it's also true. You're fucking tired, right?
Sure.
You just want to, sometimes
Sure.
you just want to veg.
Yeah. Look, like I my mom, as a single parent, would work for, or she'd be gone for at least 10 to 12 hours a day. When she got home, the last thing she wanted to do was like involve herself with anything that I had to say.
Right.
She was tired. Yeah.
And I think sometimes that results in you, I don't want to say neglecting your kids, because I don't neglect them. But especially now with technology, it's like, just go watch your iPad.
Well,
Go
hold
watch
on.
cartoons, go
Hold
do this,
on.
go away.
Before you go down this road, like, okay,
Yeah.
when I was a kid and when you were a kid, we've talked about this before. Our
Yeah.
parents did not entertain us. Like, yeah, you'd go play catch here, you'd go to the museum there, you'd go do a thing here, you'd sit down and watch TV together at some point, right? There'd be a family thing.
Right.
But generally speaking, it was go outside or go over there or go watch TV or I have things to do. Fuck straight off, kid. I'm not here to entertain you, right? Or is that just me?
No.
Like,
Look,
did your
I
mom
was-
and dad actively spend effort to make sure that Alex was like always entertained?
No.
No.
I was the accident child. Like I came 7 years after my last sibling, so I was the last man standing. So I was always on my own.
Yeah, but
Like,
do you think your brother and sister, having been the older ones, do you think they were actively entertained by your parents?
I don't think they were actively entertained, but I know that they did more stuff together.
Okay, so you
Right.
were neglected.
I wasn't neglected. It's not like I was living they took care of me, but like I found ways to entertain myself.
Right.
I was always a loner kid. Like I liked being alone. I playing with my toys, and like I found a way to like I created my own little world and like go in my
Yeah.
room and I play with my GI Joes and everybody's happy.
So, do you now feel as if you are? I don't think you do, because I think you've said it otherwise. But do you feel like you need to entertain your kids? Like you need to be there to like make sure that they can do shit. Otherwise, like they're not going to have a good time.
No, I don't
No,
feel like I
right?
need to entertain them, but I would like to engage them more. I guess if that makes any sense.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Oh, the
Do you
blanket fell.
Do you? The lighting has changed dramatically.
Yeah, there's the fucking glare. Sorry,
You
viewers.
can go, you can go put it up. And it's quite frankly,
No.
if there's any creeps who are going to watch this, then they can see the struggles that we have trying to
I'm
create
gonna sit
video.
here with the glare, and you guys will have to deal with it.
Okay, there you go. Do you feel like you need to be your kid's friend?
No, I got to be their parent before I'm their friend.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Because that's the other thing that I see
want
a
to
lot,
be
too.
I want to earn their trust enough that they can come to me with anything. Like now that Olivia's getting older, she's going into middle school. She's
Yeah.
gonna be exposed to more shitty things, right?
That's
And
true.
Barbara and I have sat down with her and spoken to her about this and said, hey, like you're moving into a world where things are gonna get weird. People, hormones, like everything's going crazy. Things are going to change, and we want you to be able to
Yeah.
come to us and ask us anything.
What
And we
grade
told
is
her
she in
straight
now?
up. She's going into 6th grade.
Going into 6th. Okay.
So, like, she's already asked, like, she's been asking Barbara, like, questions about, you know, sex and female body. Like, her body's changing. So,
Sure.
and we've told her straight up, look, there's some things you can ask us, and we'll give you the answer straight up. And there's some things that you can ask us, and we're going to tell you no, because you're too young to understand it. And when the time is right, we'll explain it to you. And you have to be cool with that.
Yeah.
And she got it. Like,
Yeah.
she was like, okay. We told her straight up, you can ask us anything, and we'll make the decision whether we can give you the answer or we're going to tell you no, you're not mature enough to really understand what that means.
Right.
Or, yes, we're going to tell you, and you take with it what you will.
So interesting, because like I vaguely recall 6th grade, because 6th grade for me wasn't middle school; it was elementary school still. Middle school didn't start until 7th, but in any case, that's right about the time where like things are starting to get wacky.
Yes.
Right? You've sufficiently left the bubble of your home world, and you're now into this whole new world. There's new imagery, there's new words, there's new relationships, there's all sorts of things that are happening in the world that are bizarre and new. And so I remember that like that was a particularly weird time. So like yeah, I think that's important actually, that you're
Well, it doesn't help. It doesn't help in our scenario that she has cousins who are in that school now. They're like a grade or two above her.
Okay.
So they're filling her with stuff like, oh, the kids do drugs in the school and kids are having sex in the bathroom.
Oh dear.
So she came to us. She's like, what are you guys sending me to? Like, what is it? And we're like, whoa.
Mom,
Like,
Dad,
yeah.
what's sex and drugs?
Well, that's exactly it. Like, that's kind of was like, whoa, hold on. Like, we don't want you going into it thinking that you're going into school and it's like this crazy drug orgy. Like, you're walking into Woodstock. Like, that's
think-
not.
I think the appropriate answer to that question would be drugs and sex are both awesome. Enjoy yourself. It turns
Maybe
out
when she's 18.
yeah, we're all going to
Not
try to
at
tell
11.
you no as much as possible, but the truth of the matter is like that's pretty much what's going to drive you for the rest of your life is some form of drugs and sex. So just enjoy.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of Woodstock, I actually watched the documentary on Netflix about Woodstock 99.
Oh, that was a good one. I watched it too.
Did you watch it?
Yeah.
Do you remember that shit?
I do.
I had tickets to go to Woodstock 99, but couldn't make it.
Good thing.
And I knew it was a shit show, but man, am I glad I didn't go to that fucking thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about a bunch of disrespectful people.
Talk about a bunch of disrespectful people.
Setting shit on fire and
I
rioting.
mean, it illustrated to me what the difference was that I didn't remember between the early 90s and the late 90s. And I don't even mean because I was younger and older, right? But I just mean it's seemingly the culture, the music, the culture, the behavior. Why were we so fucking angry in the late 90s?
I don't know.
We had nothing was wrong. The economy was great. We weren't, there was no fucking danger. Everybody was just lovely. What was wrong with us?
There was nothing wrong with it. I think every generation has that moment of teenage angst where everyone is angry and confused and doesn't know what they're doing. And the music is, look, the 60s had their version of it. Every generation had their version of it. Ours was just a little bit more violent.
To be fair, the 60s actually had like proper social issues that were coming to a head and that were serious. Like 1969 was only a year after the civil rights movement and actual legislative change. Prior to that, it was still a highly divided country on that front. So there was a lot going on in 69. By the time 99 arose, like what did we have in the 90s as a decade that was even remotely close to something like civil rights in the 60s? Like nothing. We had flannel.
I miss flannel. I like flannel.
Why miss flannel, Alex? Why not still have flannel?
I'll wear flannel in the fall.
Flannel's great.
Yeah. Keeps you warm.
Yeah. It's stylish. I don't think it ever goes out of style.
I don't know if it's stylish, but
Well, what's stylish, really?
it's all objective.
It's no.
Subjective?
That's right, subjective.
What's objective?
Would be if everybody agreed, like with evidence, that flannel was stylish.
I don't believe you.
You don't. On the next episode of the Dear Brother podcast, our topic will be definitions of objective and subjective.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know why we were so angry.
I don't know either. Like, I get the music was different and it manifested itself differently, but when you look, especially at the documentary, and you see, like, for sure they focused in on the violence and the anger and the white teenage frat boy kind of behavior. There were certainly other people there who did not engage in that nonsense, but it seemed like just the overwhelming majority was just white angry teenage frat boy style. And I wonder why any of them, those entitled little fucking shits that were our peers at the time, why the fuck were they so fucking angry at the world when the world had literally given everything to them?
I don't know.
Were they angry because they had got it because they didn't have to try? Like, were they just bored?
It could be. Boredom could come into play. Yeah, sure.
I'd like to imagine that every one of those shirtless, backwards hat wearing fucking twats are today voting for Donald Trump.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because, like, look, right? One of the things that I often forget is that we are precisely the generation who are making these decisions right now. Like, yeah, there's still boomers left over who are making some decisions, and there's millennials who are, making decisions. But generally speaking, it's us. Our age group are the ones we are now currently as in charge of things as we have ever been. And for anybody wondering, watch the Woodstock 99 documentary on Netflix to see what we used to be like before we started being in charge of the world.
All right, so then what? So where was the cutoff, right? Why did that generation become that way, and like what made previous generations not that way?
I don't know, because I think, look, there's always been an element of, like you said, there's teenage angst, there's anger, regardless of the societal issues of the day. It doesn't really matter. Any teenager is going to have some form of nonsense because they're a teenager. But it was something about the culture in general that led to that age group, 18, 19, 20, 21, to just I feel like maybe they just could get away with shit.
Yeah, but why?
But I don't know, because if you look back, right, like the behaviors of the late 90s where like sexual assault was perfectly acceptable at Woodstock 99, right?
Right.
I think if you look back in time, sexual assault was more acceptable, apparently, than it is today. Thankfully, It is less acceptable. But it almost like it reverted in the late 90s a little bit. I don't know, because I wasn't old enough back in the 70s or at all in the 70s or 80s or early 90s to really be able to understand that.
Right.
So I don't know why. I don't know why. I kind of go back to the like, maybe these entitled little shitbags never really had to try to do anything, and since they didn't have to try, they got bored, and so they just did whatever. I don't know.
But at what point? At what point did they become entitled? Like,
At
why
what
did?
point?
How did they become? There's that weird generational cutoff, right? So, like, let's use your parents or my parents for that matter for your mom or your dad. I don't know if you know their history, but
Roughly.
I'm gonna go back to what I was saying earlier. When they were growing up, did both of their parents work? It was typically the man who worked and the woman who stayed home and watched the kids, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that
roughly
was-
speaking. Yeah.
I feel like that's the way it was, and I'm not advocating for us to go back to this. I'm not. Please don't.
Sure.
Crucify
No,
me,
let's,
but-
let's be clear here. An intellectual discussion can be had with differing opinions without us advocating for things.
I don't want to get canceled.
Yeah, no, fuck. You can't get canceled if no one listens.
This is true.
Yeah.
So, I would say that our generation was really the first that had that dynamic of the dual working parents.
Yeah, that's
think-
roughly true. Yeah.
I think that up to us, for the most part, there was always that dynamic of the father went to work, the mother stayed home, watched the kids, and then our generation came along, and it was like, well, now both parents need to work in order to afford shit, and the kids are kind of left on their own.
So
And that's not to say they were neglected,
no.
but there was less time spent with a parental unit who could have been that person to show them. And it's not an excuse, but it's a theory.
No, but I guess the way to look at it too is that I think that kids spending time on their own is actually a very good thing. And I'm not talking about like stick the kid in the basement and put in front of the TV and that's kids spending time on their own.
Right.
No, like in general, like children being able to go outside and run around the streets and play with their friends and fucking figure shit out, kind of Lord of the Flies style. I think that's a very beneficial and useful thing. And I would argue that the further back in time you go, the more normal that was than it is today.
Yeah.
Like when you and I were kids, we used to go outside and play with friends and figure shit out. It was basketball or wiffle ball or tag or fucking hide and seek.
You were outside all day, and you came just make sure you're home for dinner.
Yeah, you're outside all day and you figured shit out. You had to learn like the rules of the world amongst groups of friends because that was the deal. And so I think that's a hugely beneficial thing. So this idea of them being around one parent all the time, I think is less the thing and more. Because like I knew kids, like to be sure, a friend of mine when I was growing up, his mother stayed at home.
Right.
And he would like come out and play sometimes, but wasn't always allowed to because his mom said he couldn't for all sorts of silly reasons. Like I remember the one most common is he had the sniffles. And so, Michael has the sniffles and so therefore he can't come out and play. And it was never him saying like, I feel crappy, I'm going to stay home. It was always his mom would say, because they'd be like, hey, can Michael come out and play? You knock on the screen door kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was his mom would come to the door and goes, I'm sorry, Michael can't come out and play today. He has the sniffles. So this kid was coddled in a way that I wasn't, or maybe other people and you weren't. And he is now in a way worse off place than either you or I. I think, because here's the danger about this line of conversation. The danger is, because here's the thing, the right-wing radical talking point, when you start getting into the apparent being at home,
Right.
is feminism broke that, right? And the idea is that women should be at home doing their job, And that's what
Right.
their argument is. And that subsequently in the late 60s and early 70s, feminism as a concept ruined that and therefore caused two parents to work and single mothers. And now children are ruined. And that's why we're the way that we are. But nothing is that simple in the first place. And the second
No,
place
I think it has nothing to do with feminism. It's economics. It's
It's
the fact that
economics.
It's you have two people have to work in order to afford shit.
Also, I think that the reality of this is let's just say, for argument's sake, that it is in fact because women became empowered in the workplace and were able to go out and work. Let's say it's feminism, for example.
Sure.
I would say that whatever the consequences are of that, fucking cool. Suck it up. Because this idea that women need to stay home according to some bullshit archaic view is complete nonsense.
No, I don't think it has anything to do with. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I
at
know.
all.
I'm just laying out what the typical bullshit argument is about feminism.
My point is the fact that the whole two-person working thing has gotten so, like, you don't have a choice to do that, right?
Right.
And it's just because you need to afford shit. You need to be able to pay your rent. You need to
Right.
buy food. Pay insurance, all that stuff.
So without having children, and so making me the operator in this program that has no credibility whatsoever, I do look at it though as a more simplistic thing where it's got less to do about a parent or two parents or six parents or whatever, and it's got more to do with consistency and routine and things like that. So when I was a kid, I had the advantage of my grandparents, and that was a very
Right.
consistent sort of environment for me to be in. My grandmother was always at home, and I would go there after school, and I would have this experience of being with her and my grandfather, and then my aunts and uncles were there, and quite often family would come over. But there was a lot of consistency and regular stuff. Like, it was always dinner time. It didn't matter if my mom came home late. It didn't matter if my grandfather had to go do a thing. It didn't matter if my grandmother was tired. It didn't matter if I was being an asshole. Dinner time always happened, period.
Right.
And so things like that, I think, are super important. So, like, whether or not you have a parent, because, like, I had my grandparents, which was an advantage for me ultimately. But I came from a single mother. My mother was working all the time. I don't have this 50s style nuclear family, mother and father at home all the time thing. But I had this element of consistent sort of, no matter what, this is how we are, this is how we behave, this is what we do. And looking back on that, I feel like that was more important than there being a mother or father doing traditional roles. You know what I mean?
Right. Having that structure, and maybe that's part of it. I think also the level of consequences for poor behavior has gone down.
Oh yeah. Well, like, we can't punch each other in the face anymore, right?
Right. That's a good example because exactly, you can't punch each other in the face anymore. Like, I can't scold another person's child if they do. You know what I mean? Like people automatically get defensive because their kid can do no wrong.
Their kid can do no. Why can't you? Okay, so here, let's do this. On the next episode of the Dear Brother podcast, why the fuck can't your children do wrong? Why are your children so goddamn special? And what are the consequences? So why don't we do that? You good with that?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dear Brother podcast. And if you would like, you can follow us on Twitter at @DearBrother_pod. You can go to our YouTube channel, Dear Brother Podcast, if you're a creep and you want to watch us. Otherwise, wherever you get your podcast. What?
Why do you keep calling people creeps?
Who the fuck's gonna watch us? Like, we're in our homes. Like, it's a Sunday morning. I'm still in my pajamas.
I enjoy your pajamas, a dress shirt.
Yeah, my pajamas, a dress shirt.
It's odd. We should talk about that.
We should talk about that on the next episode of the Dear Brother podcast. Thanks for listening.
Hey, thanks for listening to our podcast. You can find us on Twitter at DearBrother_pod or on our website, dearbrotherpodcast.com.